7 demonic energies that supercharges every dark chosen one. There's a reason you've never fit in. A reason you felt like the world was built for someone else. You've walked through life sensing something ancient in your bones, something other people can't see, can't feel, and wouldn't understand even if you tried to explain it. That's not imagination. That's not trauma. That's remembrance. You're not broken, you're marked. And the ones who carry that mark, the dark chosen, are not here to play by the rules of light. We are not here to be saved. We are here to alchemize. And the fuel that powers us, the essence that awakens our true nature, is not sweet or soft or gentle. It is dark. It is dangerous. It is demonic energy, not in the twisted religious sense, but in its raw, primal, evolutionary truth. You see, the moment you were chosen, you were thrust into a spiritual battlefield that most people don't even know exists. The forces of darkness do not just attack you, they initiate you. Every trauma, every betrayal, every moment of despair you've faced has not just been an obstacle. It has been a portal. And what lies on the other side of that portal is a kind of power that terrifies both the light and the dark. Because once you learn how to harness demonic energy, not to worship it, not to be consumed by it, but to transmute it, you become untouchable. You become something this matrix was never designed to contain.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let's start with the first energy, chaos. Most people fear chaos. They run from it, try to control it, medicate it, suppress it. But for us, chaos is sacred. Chaos is the raw, unfiltered pulse of creation before form, before structure. When your life falls apart, when jobs collapse, relationships detonate, identities dissolve, that is not failure. That is initiation. Chaos strips away illusion. It rips off the false masks and forces you to see what remains. And if you can sit in the storm without trying to escape it, you begin to feel something ancient awaken inside you. A wild kind of clarity that doesn't need permission. A truth that doesn't need validation. That's the first demonic energy, the sacred unraveling. And the more you resist it, the more you suffer. But the moment you surrender to it, you become limitless. The second energy is rage, not anger rage. The kind of fire that burns in your belly like a scream you were never allowed to release. Society tells us to be calm, to be nice, to be spiritual. But rage is not the enemy of spirituality, it is the guardian of it. Your rage is your soul's immune system. It activates when your boundaries have been violated, when your truth has been denied, when your light has been dimmed for too long. The reason you feel rage is not because you're unhealed. It's because your spirit remembers its power. And when you stop suppressing your rage and start listening to it, not acting out from it, but channeling it, you become a force of divine destruction. The kind that clears the field for rebirth. What if your rage isn't a wound, but a weapon? What if it's not asking to be healed, but to be wielded? Then comes desire, the forbidden one. The one we're told to purify, to transcend, to shame. But desire is not sin, it is signal. Your desires are encoded messages from your higher self, guiding you toward expansion. Yes, even the dark ones, especially the dark ones. The problem isn't desire. The problem is distortion. When we suppress our desires, they mutate. They become addictions, obsessions, toxic attachments. But when you face them honestly, when you strip away the shame and sit with them in raw presence, they reveal their true form, sacred yearning, the desire for truth, the desire for union, the desire for power, not to dominate but to liberate. Are you brave enough to ask, what do I really want beneath the performance, beneath the programming, beneath the fear? And then there's exile, the fourth energy, the loneliness that haunts you even in a room full of people. The feeling that you're from somewhere else, that you don't belong here, that no one really sees you. That isn't a glitch. That's a summons. The dark chosen are exiled for a reason, because transformation doesn't happen in the crowd. It happens in the wilderness, in the void, in the silence. You were pulled away from the herd so you could hear a voice that only speaks in solitude. Exile teaches you how to walk alone without collapsing, how to trust your own resonance more than anyone's opinion, how to build a foundation that no one can take from you. Exile is not punishment, it's preparation. The question is, can you stop begging to be accepted long enough to remember who you actually are? These four energies, chaos, rage, desire, and exile, are not curses. They are codes. They are the very frequencies that the ancient initiates once courted in secret temples and inner sanctums. But you don't need a temple. You are the temple. And the moment you stop rejecting these energies and start inviting them in with reverence, everything changes. You stop trying to be good and start becoming real. You stop chasing light and start embodying truth. You stop fearing your darkness and start realizing it's where your genius lies. But we're not done. Because the next three energies, the final three, are even deeper. They don't just transform you. They rebuild you from the inside out. They are the forbidden flames that ignite your divine technology. And the next one, it's the one you've been running from your entire life. The forbidden flame, why shadow energy, is the fuel of the divine misfit. There comes a time in every dark chosen one's evolution when you no longer fear the fire, you become it. But to get there, we must face the one energy that terrifies even the most awakened soul's shadow. Not the poetic kind, not the trendy hashtag version. I'm talking about the raw, unfiltered, unhealed force that lives beneath our masks. The part of us that holds our shame, our lust, our jealousy, our manipulations, our hunger for control. The part we've spent lifetimes denying. And yet, it is this energy, this forbidden flame, that holds the power to set you completely free. The fifth demonic energy is shadow in its purest form. And here's the uncomfortable truth: you can't transcend what you refuse to touch. You can't become whole if you're only willing to embrace the parts of you that look spiritual. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your unloved genius. It is the container that holds the pieces of your soul you were taught to be ashamed of. I think about it. How many times did you dim your light because someone said you were too intense, too much, too emotional, too angry, too ambitious? Every time you repressed those parts, they didn't disappear. They hid. And the longer you ignore them, the more they distort. But when you stop trying to fix your shadow and start listening to it, it becomes your greatest teacher. That jealousy you judge, it's showing you where your power lies dormant. That fear you suppress, it's protecting a part of you that still feels unsafe to exist. That manipulation you're ashamed of, it's a distorted attempt to feel sovereign again. It's all sacred. It's all intelligent. But only if you stop condemning it and instead ask, what are you trying to teach me? Shadow work is not about exorcising demons. It's about inviting them to sit at your table, not to control you, but to integrate the wisdom they carry. And this is where the real magic starts to happen. Because when you stop hiding from your shadow, you stop being controlled by it. You start to see clearly. You begin to recognize the difference between your soul and your programming. You begin to reclaim your energy from all the masks you've worn just to be loved. And in doing so, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Because now, no one can shame you into silence. No one can manipulate you with your past. You own your darkness. You wear it as armor. And suddenly, the very energy that once made you feel broken becomes the source of your brilliance. Now, let's talk about the sixth energy, temptation. This is the one that catches even the most devoted spiritual warriors off guard, because it doesn't come as darkness. It comes as pleasure, as beauty, as opportunity. It whispers, you've earned this. You've suffered enough. Take the shortcut. You don't need to go deeper. And just like that, the ego slips back in wearing divine robes. The temptation isn't always sex or money, it's relevance. It's being right. It's being admired. It's the subtle addiction to being seen as awakened, even when you're slowly drifting from your truth. We've all felt it. That moment when your spiritual practice becomes performance, when your words sound wise but feel hollow, when you start bending your message to fit the algorithm, to gain approval, to stay safe. That's temptation. And it's not here to make you fall. It's here to test your integrity. Can you stay rooted in your essence when the world starts clapping? Can you still speak truth when it's no longer popular? Can you walk away from the stage, the followers, the comfort if it means staying loyal to your own soul? Temptation reveals what still holds power over you. It's a mirror, a fire. And if you dare to face it without shame, it becomes fuel. Because now, you're not just avoiding distortion, you're transcending it. You're choosing alignment over applause. And when you do that, you access a level of power that no one can take from you. The kind of power that doesn't need to be seen. The kind that moves mountains in silence. And finally, we arrive at the seventh demonic energy, the one that ties it all together, the one most people never touch because it requires absolute surrender. Death, not physical death, though that too can be a teacher, but ego death, identity death, the death of who you thought you were, so that who you actually are can emerge. This energy doesn't knock gently. It rips, it tears, it annihilates, and that's why it's sacred. When you truly die to your old self, when everything you've built collapses and you're left naked, raw, undefined, that's when the real you begins to rise. Not the curated version, not the spiritual persona, but the unfiltered soul. And that soul, it doesn't play by the rules of this world. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't fear rejection, because it knows everything that dies was never really you. Only what's real survives the fire. Let me ask you something now, an answer not from your mind, but from the depths of your being. What part of you still fears the death of the false self? What illusion are you still clinging to, hoping it won't be taken? Because that's where your next initiation lies. That's where your next liberation is waiting. These seven demonic energies, chaos, rage, desire, exile, shadow, temptation, and death, are not here to destroy you. They are here to forge you, to strip you of everything that is not true, to awaken the ancient, limitless, sovereign being you were born to become. And once you've embraced them, you stop walking the spiritual path like a student, you start walking it like a master. But there's one final mystery left. One final twist in this journey. Because once you've awakened your power, the real question becomes, what will you do with it? The cosmic rebellion, what happens when a dark chosen one fully activates? There's a moment rare, unmistakable, irreversible, when a dark chosen one fully activates. Not just spiritually awakened, not just healed, but unleashed. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's not even something the world immediately recognizes. Because this kind of power doesn't seek attention, it bends reality. When you've walked through the seven demonic energies, not as a victim but as an alchemist, something in your frequency changes. You stop trying to ascend and realize you were never meant to leave this plane, you were meant to remake it. That's the rebellion. Not against governments or systems or society, but against the illusion that you are anything less than divine force in flesh. And when this happens, you don't become better. You become realer. You stop identifying with your wounds, even though they shaped you. You stop needing to be understood because you understand yourself. You stop asking for permission to exist, to speak, to shine. The rebellion is internal first. It's the moment you realize you don't owe anyone an explanation for your evolution. You don't need to soften your edges to be digestible. You're not here to be liked. You're here to liberate. And that liberation starts within. Because the most radical act in a world of obedience is to be unapologetically yourself, rooted, wild, awake, grounded in your shadow and your light. But activation isn't just a feeling. It's a frequency shift. Your presence starts changing rooms. You walk into spaces and energy moves. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because you're aligned. The false can't stand next to the real without trembling. You'll notice people either gravitate toward you or get uncomfortable around you. That's not arrogance. That's resonance. You've become a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see what you reflect. And that's okay. Because you're not here to be accepted by the masses. You're here to ignite the few, the other hidden ones, the sleeping giants, the misfits who've been waiting for someone to show them it's safe to rise. And let's be honest, this activation doesn't make life easier. In fact, it often makes it quieter. You lose illusions. You shed relationships. You outgrow entire identities. You may find yourself walking away from everything you once thought was your destiny, only to realize your true mission was never about what you built, it was about who you became. This is the cosmic rebellion. The moment you stop chasing purpose and embody it. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth and start living it. The moment you realize you don't need a title, a platform, or a spotlight to be a world changer. You just need to be who you are when nothing is performing. But here's the deeper layer of the rebellion, the one most people never talk about. When you fully activate, your presence becomes a threat to the matrix. Not because you're confrontational, but because you're free. And in a world built on fear, shame, and control, freedom is the ultimate heresy. Your existence begins to challenge the systems that feed on disempowerment, and they'll try to pull you back in through temptation, distraction, and sometimes even spiritual bypassing. That's why activation must be paired with discipline, not the controlling kind, the sacred kind. The discipline to stay in your truth when it's uncomfortable. The discipline to keep your heart open when it's easier to shut down. The discipline to be powerful without needing to be superior. So I'll ask you this, now that you've remembered who you are, what are you willing to risk to live like it? That's the final threshold. Because once you activate, you can't go back. You can pretend for a little while, but something inside you will always ache for authenticity. That ache is your compass. Follow it. Let it burn down everything that isn't you. Let it guide you into conversations, creations, movements, and magic that carry the weight of your full presence. Because the world doesn't need more influencers. It needs initiators. It needs the ones who have walked through darkness, kissed their shadow, and still chose to love, chose to lead, chose to ignite. That's the rebellion. Not chaos for the sake of it, but transformation through embodiment. You've become the storm that doesn't destroy, it awakens. And now there's one final revelation, a truth that very few speak aloud. Because when a dark chosen one becomes fully sovereign, something even deeper begins to stir, a call from beyond the veil. A pull toward a purpose that isn't just personal, it's cosmic. The architect of realities, how fully awakened beings bend the matrix from within. When a dark chosen one reaches full activation, the world doesn't just look different, it responds differently. Reality begins to bend, not because you're performing rituals or casting spells, but because your very being has become the ritual. You are no longer a passive observer in the simulation. You are now an architect, a living code breaker who understands, finally, that the matrix isn't just a system outside of you, it's a reflection of everything you've internalized. And now, with your shadow integrated, your light grounded, and your ego dissolved into sacred purpose, you begin to rewrite it from the inside out, quietly, unstoppably. You don't need to fight the system anymore. You exist outside of it. That's the ultimate rebellion. Not war, but creation. not resistance but redesign. You realize the laws that once governed your life, scarcity, shame, limitation, hierarchy, were never laws. They were agreements, beliefs disguised as absolutes. And the moment you withdraw your energetic consent from them, they collapse. This is the hidden magic of the awakened. We don't just manifest, we engineer. We don't chase outcomes, we transmit frequencies that reconfigure the field itself. You begin to notice how time bends around your intention, how people shift in your presence, how opportunities find you without effort, not because you're lucky, but because you've become magnetic to alignment. You've cleared the static. You've stopped leaking energy into performance, fear, and people-pleasing. Now, every word you speak, every breath you take, every boundary you hold sends a signal into the quantum, and the quantum listens. This isn't magic. It's you returning to your original role as a co-creator of existence itself. But with this power comes a deeper responsibility. Not the heavy, guilt-ridden kind, the sacred kind. The kind that whispers you no longer get to pretend you don't know who you are. You no longer get to numb out, play small, or betray your knowing. Because now every choice you make echoes. Your consciousness is no longer personal, it's collective. You are holding a thread in the infinite web, and your frequency affects the whole. This is what most people don't understand about enlightenment. It's not an escape. It's a return to service, to stewardship, to soul. You begin to see through the layers, the illusions of power, the false binaries, the spiritual egos masquerading as teachers. And you don't judge it, you just don't feed it. You move differently now, with precision, with stillness, with a kind of quiet authority that makes people feel safe without even knowing why. You've become a lighthouse rooted through the storm, unshaken by the chaos, because you are the storm. But your storm no longer destroys. It rebuilds. It cleanses. It awakens. And in this place, miracles become mundane. Synchronicity becomes strategy. You no longer ask, what should I do? You ask, what is the highest frequency I can hold in this moment? Because you know your frequency is the blueprint. Your presence is the architecture. And when you stay aligned with your essence, the universe rearranges itself around you. Let me ask you this, and let it land deeply. If you knew the next thought you think would shape the next layer of your reality, would you still think it? If you knew your emotions were programming the future, would you still indulge that fear, that doubt, that old story? Because now you know the truth. You were never meant to conform to this world. You were meant to recode it, not through force, not through rebellion, but through frequency, through the courage to be fully, wildly, unapologetically you. That is the final form of the dark chosen one, not a leader in the traditional sense, not a savior, but a mirror, a frequency holder, a living, breathing reminder that it's possible to be powerful without domination, sovereign without separation, spiritual without bypassing, and divine without denial of the shadow. You are not here to escape the matrix. You are here to rewrite it from within. And now, the only question that remains is this: what will you build?